Okay, we're back looking at advanced image effects using the Fluid Engine in Squarespace. And I thought I'd try something a little bit different again today. Don't know if this will work. I've literally had a thought in the last few minutes, and I thought I'd just share the process of how we try to come up with bespoke layouts in Squarespace on the fly. So I'm going to click on Edit. We're back in on this page that we covered in 2 previous chapters. It's worth checking them out to show how we can do these kind of like blind effects with images, and this one with a split and a zoom effect on the image on the left. So I'm going to add a new section. I think I'll add in another text section just to break it up like I did before. Edit that section, go to colors, and I'm going to go for another dark color just to divide it. Those who follow our videos know I love that banding effect where we alternate each band or segment within a page to alternate the colors easily. I'm going to go with this option once again. I think that's what we chose before. Yeah. To see if we can put some more overlapping images in. So I'm moving that over to the right. So we've got more space here. Might bring it back one, but undecided exactly about the width of that image so far. Next step, I'm going to add another image block. So instead of having it full height, I'm going to have it so it's square. Or at least as close to square as possible. I can adjust it to get it perfectly square with the image itself. Okay. And I'm going to overlap it so it's 50% overlap on that background image. So what I'm looking to achieve, you could probably guess at this stage, is one detail image in the foreground and a background texture or image behind. So I'm going to keep the same theme, going back to my farming roots as well. I'm going to keep the combine harvester in as our chosen detailed image. This is where the little farmer in me is looking through loads of different machines now and being too fussy on selecting one. So I just need to select one. This one's got a bit of space around it. That could work quite nicely. And this one of the class could work as well. So I'm going to select the class. It's taking a minute or two. So I could leave it like that and have that overlap effect. I'm going to search for wheat field this time. So I'll replace that background image. Again, browse stock images. And I'm after, ideally, top-down view. Keep it in line with the image. If I can't find that, I'm not going to spend too long. This one might work. The resolution should be high enough that I can crop a section out of it. Just have that nice background texture. So what I'm looking to achieve is having a more neutral pattern style texture behind and then have the detailed image in the foreground. Okay. So it's not quite ready yet. There's too much going on. I wouldn't tend to go for this type of effect. We've got 2 machines here because one of our principles of design is spotlight. There can only be 1 star of the show. And when we're drawing a spotlight on this combine harvester here, and we've got one in the background here, they're fighting for prominence on the page. So by removing that one to go to a texture would work really well. I've got a couple of different options. If I wanted to keep it like this, I could nip over into Photoshop and very easily clone stamp or use the heal tool to get rid of that combine harvester. There's another issue with that is we can see the lines where the combine's been cutting. So the texture here is very different to above. So I'm going to try a different version, which is quicker. I can edit this image. And now from here, I can use the custom crop effect, and I can choose either the top or the bottom section. Now, what I'm hoping is that the resolution of the image is big enough that we're not going to see any damage or problems with the photo by just selecting that more balanced, more neutral backdrop. I think we get away with that. Excellent. So now we've got a nice texture to the right that's really enhancing this page, but not fighting for prominence with the content and the image. I'm going to press save at this point because I don't trust my internet connection. And now we'll jump back in. So every time you, even myself who's used Squarespace so much, I will often just nip over and save regularly. Highly recommended. So what I'm going to do now is edit that image. Go to the edit option here. This is one of the downsides with the latest versions of Squarespace 7.1. There seems to be a lot more clicking than there used to be. So overall, it's improved drastically in terms of what we can do with it now. We can do an awful lot more without code, or without additional custom code, should I say. But the flip side is we seem to be spending our lives clicking. It'd be really nice if Squarespace's next approach will be to look to refine the processes and get us there quicker. Okay, we can see now that even though the frame is wider because it's locking to those grids, we can't get it perfectly square, but we can do it with the image itself. So that's, if I just jump out and save here, that's one option. And if we were going for very sharp edges, straight lines, that could work really nice. We can see now that we've got this photo here and this one here, and they're working quite nicely. What I'm going to do next is to try and adjust the contrast of each, maybe even add a filter to them to make them feel like they were taken by the same camera or in the same theme. Because at the moment, this is a lot darker than this, and they don't really tie in perfectly together. So I'm going to jump back in here and do one thing before I start on that approach, and I'm going to go to Design, and I'm going to put it in a circle, just because I think that makes it a little bit softer. But you can go nuts. You can add in whatever effect you want using these shapes, and I'll probably create a video showing how we can use more customized shapes or adjust our own shapes for this effect. I'm going to move that across one. Oh, that's annoying. I wanted it so it would come across 50% of that width. So what we'd have to do is jump in and add some custom code and put a minus margin probably on this, or put a margin right on it to align it so that block comes back to the center. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Not the end of the world. We'll slum it with this one for now. Final step now is go into edit the image and see if we can apply some filters. The frustrating part is that I can't see the image that I'm looking to adjust it to and have this on screen. So one thing I can do is just duplicate the tab and then flick back and forth between them. So we've got that obviously pre-save. We've got the circle on the other one and we haven't got it saved in this one. But this will give us an idea of this background texture. So we're looking at a lot more golden colored, darker, higher contrast effect on this one. And then we might just reduce the contrast and lighten this background. So instead of potentially damaging one image by going over the top with the effects, we just adjust in both images a little bit. So I don't think I'm going to go with any more saturation on this image because it might damage it too much. And I might even just bring the shadows and not go over the top with the contrast, because we can see already a lot of these whites have been blown out. What we mean by that is when they get so white they can't get any lighter, and then we end up with different weird shapes in there where everything's going towards a bright white finish and it loses its natural feel to it then. I might just increase the sharpness of this image because it's going to be smaller than this. I might just bump the saturation a tiny bit. There we go. So I'll just adjust that. There's not a huge amount of change there, but hopefully that little bit will help, just to mean that we don't have to do quite so much with this one here. So again, jump in, edit the background. This time I'm going to take the saturation down, and it's gone from more yellow to a lighter, softer gold color. We're just going to lighten some of these shadows, so taking some of the contrast out of this, and maybe even just lighten some of the highlights. So I've not even touched the contrast tool on this. Another option is we can use the brightness tool as well, which brings everything up at the same time to a lighter shade. And I think that's what we're going to go with. Might just add a tiny bit of blur. Problem with this is you can overdo it and it can look really messy. Now I think, if anything, I'm going to just add a tiny bit of sharpness to it. Okay. Haven't added any filters, because the problem with filters is it can look like you've deliberately been tweaking the images. I'd rather just manually adjust them accordingly. That can work nicely. So if we go back into the design tool, we can see now that these are the options we've got. One thing we could do that we can't do here is to add some custom code to put a border around the image. And that can work quite nicely as well. So we can have a border around that. But there we go. I think that's enough for today. Press save. That just shows how we can affect that overlap effect shown there. We can also, if I jump in back into edit, switch to mobile view and see how that works. And as we can see here now that it's not working perfectly on mobile. So this is where we can move this image above the backdrop, move the backdrop down on mobile, probably just reduce the height of this image on mobile. Let's see how much of this carries across to the desktop view, or does it keep it the same on desktop? We've already, in the last video I created, shown how we can use some custom code to get around issues where we want to hide an image, but this effect looks quite nice on mobile. We need a bit more space below the button, but let's just see how that jumps back to desktop, unchanged on desktop. So there we go. Yeah. An image effect using a circle over top of a neutral background, which really enhances your page, looks really nice, and relatively easy to put together. Hope you've enjoyed. See you next time.